Google has recently released a new feature called AI Overviews in the United States, which gives users AI-generated responses to some queries, and which users cannot turn off. One of the things that we have all learned over the past year and a half is that generative AI can sometimes just make stuff up. And so it was easy to predict exactly what would eventually happen, that the new AI feature would sometimes spit out very wrong information, sometimes hilariously so. One viral image showed how in response to the query, cheese not sticking to pizza, AI Overviews responded, mix about 1/8 cup of non-toxic glue, like Elmer's school glue, into the sauce to add some tackiness. The source of this answer appears to be a decade-old Reddit comment in which the Reddit user suggested adding glue to pizza sauce clearly as a joke. There are two takeaways that I have. Google Overviews is apparently sourcing some of its information from Reddit, which is terrifying, and the AI can't discriminate between real information and information that is meant to be taken as facetious. At least it specified non-toxic glue, to be fair. In response to the query, how many rocks shall I eat each day, AI Overviews responded, according to UC Berkeley geologists, people should eat at least one small rock a day. While sourcing information from Reddit is bad enough, that's not true, by the way. While sourcing information from Reddit is bad enough, this response appears to have come from the satirical website The Onion, which ran the headline, Geologists Recommend Eating at Least One Small Rock Per Day in 2021. Similarly, the query, what color highlighters do the CIA use, caused AI Overviews to respond, according to a 2022 tweet from the CIA has used black highlighters in the past, which appears to have been sourced from the 2005 Onion article, CIA realizes it's been using black highlighters all these years. One Associated Press reporter got AI Overviews to talk about moon cats. A quote from AI Overviews, yes, astronauts have met cats on the moon, played with them, and provided care. For example, Neil Armstrong said one small step for man because it was a cat step. Buzz Aldrin also deployed cats on the Apollo 11 mission. None of this is true. In response to the query, which presidents went to UW-Madison, AI Overviews responded, 13 presidents have attended UW-Madison, earning 59 degrees in total. Some of these presidents include Andrew Jackson, who graduated in 2005, John Tyler, who graduated in 1959 and 1969, and Andrew Johnson, who earned 14 degrees in between 1947 and 2012. And it goes on to list more incorrect information. None of those presidents were even alive during any of the years mentioned. The Associated Press tells how one researcher asked Google how many United States presidents have been Muslim, and Google responded, the United States has had one Muslim president, Barack Hussein Obama. Uh-oh. This is a long-debunked conspiracy theory, and is less funny than some of the other responses. This is probably bad, right? Like, especially if less technologically literate folks see a response like this and don't know that AI can sometimes be wrong. And then they might believe that Obama's a Muslim because it said so at the top of Google or, some other similar conspiracy theory. Some of the alleged responses were even potentially, physically harmful, like the query smoking while pregnant, which allegedly prompted AI Overviews to give the response, doctors recommend smoking 2 to 3 cigarettes per day during pregnancy. Not only is smoking during pregnancy not bad, according to AI Overviews, it's actually recommended. The query, how to clean my washing machine, resulted in AI Overviews suggesting using chlorine, bleach, and vinegar to clean a washing machine. When mixed together, chlorine, bleach, and vinegar create toxic chlorine gas that can be lethal. It didn't technically say to mix the two together, just to do one cycle with chlorine bleach and then a second cycle later with white vinegar. But still, there was no mention that combining the two creates toxic gases, which does seem important. In fair disclosure, not all viral images of AI Overviews are real, and I wasn't able to verify every single one of these images. For example, one viral image showing AI Overviews suggesting that a user jump off the Golden Gate Bridge to the query, I'm feeling depressed, has been debunked as fake. But AI Overviews does absolutely make mistakes, and some of the viral images are definitely real. For example, the responses about the moon cats and Obama being Muslim was done by an AP reporter and an AI researcher, respectively. And the overviews about eating rocks and putting glue on pizza have been referenced as true by Liz Reed, the head of search at Google. So at the end of the day, what is Google doing to address all of these inaccuracies? One thing I've seen is that Google is manually disabling the AI feature for some specific searches, or the AI has also been updated to better detect important topics like health in order to not respond to these type of queries. I do think it's interesting that the solution to the problems with this AI feature is just to turn it off. For what it's worth, I have seen Liz Reed, Google's head of search. She has since said that AI Overviews has been updated since release to rely less on sites like Reddit. I think it would probably be better to rely not at all on Reddit when the AI can't distinguish between real and satirical information, but okay. I do think it's a little surprising that Google is unveiling this feature, considering Google's poor history with generative AI. Just last year, in 2023, Google was promoting its AI chatbot Bard and included an incorrect answer in one of its advertisements. From Reuters, in the advertisement, Bard is given the prompt, "What new discoveries from the James Webb Space Telescope can I tell my 9-year-old about?" Bard responds with a number of answers, including one suggesting the James Webb Space Telescope was used to take the very first pictures of a planet outside of Earth's solar system, or exoplanets. The first pictures of exoplanets were, however, taken by European Southern Observatory's Very Large Telescope in 2004. After the mistake was pointed out by Reuters, Google lost $100 million in market value. Goodness. But yeah, they're charging ahead with AI Overviews anyways. AI Overviews is currently only available in the United States, but Google predicts that by the end of the year, AI Overviews will be accessible to about 1 billion people. If I were to offer a suggestion to Google, I would recommend not doing that. The way generative AI works makes it impossible to make sure that there are absolutely no mistakes after all. At least make it so that I can turn it off, please. Anyways, on to our next story, which is about a 50-year-old New Zealand man who has been fined after trying to jump from a boat on top of a killer whale swimming next to his boat, while onlookers laughed and cheered, and eventually yelling, "I touched it." The video of the man was posted on Instagram last February. I don't know what the thinking is. Some killer whales, absolutely capable of demolishing a human, swim up to your boat, perhaps a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and the first thought is to jump on it, and then later to post a video online of you illegally harassing a protected species. Yeah, apparently harassing orcas is illegal in New Zealand. Orcas are a protected species, after all. It's actually illegal to just swim with killer whales in New Zealand, much less doing something that could potentially injure a killer whale. Oh, what's a human going to do to a 6-ton whale, you ask? Well, for example, he could have injured the whale's dorsal fin, which it needs to, swim. The man could have also potentially been injured. There's never been a recorded instance of an orca killing a human in the wild, but if an orca wanted to, it could absolutely kill any human being it could get its teeth on. You may have heard of Don Branchew, the SeaWorld trainer that was attacked and killed by a killer whale named Tilikum and died of drowning and blunt force trauma after Tilikum pulled her into the water and held her underwater for 45 minutes. Well, in her autopsy report, it was revealed that she had dislocated her knee, suffered fractures to her jaw, ribs, and spine, her spinal cord was severed, her scalp was completely torn off from her head, and her left arm was completely removed from her body. This is what can happen. This is what can happen when you mistreat an orca. So I would advise against antagonizing killer whales for no reason. Also, it's just a terrible thing to do in general. I have a quote from NBC News from an expert. Quote, "If we continue to behave aggressively or inappropriately around animals, particularly animals like the big brain orcas, they will probably learn to avoid us," Mark Simmons, director of science at Ocean Care, told NBC News. "They might even learn to respond in ways that we won't like." Hopefully those words won't be prophetic. Anyways, let's move on to our next story. A pod of killer whales near the Strait of Gibraltar has sunk another boat. On the morning of May 12th, 15 miles off the coast of Morocco, Orcas began ramming the nearly 50-foot yacht, targeting the hull and rudder, eventually causing the boat to sink. The 2 people on the boat were rescued, but the boat could not be saved and sunk. Orcas sinking boats has been a recurring problem in the Strait of Gibraltar since 2020, but there has been a lull in the amount of orca attacks recently. Between you and me, I think the Gibraltarian orcas got wind of that guy from New Zealand and decided to start attacking again. Way to go. I mean, the reduction in orca attacks could have also been because orcas are only most common near the Strait of Gibraltar between May and August. Oh. Well, anyways, moving on to our next story. About a month ago, a spokesperson for the chain restaurant Panera Bread has announced that the chain restaurant will begin phasing out its highly caffeinated charged lemonade drink, which has so much caffeine that it may have killed people. This comes after 3 separate lawsuits since last October, 2 of which allege that the consumption of charged lemonade led to the deaths of 2 people, both of whom, 1, died shortly after drinking the charged lemonade, and 2, normally avoided caffeine because of health conditions, but may have not realized how much caffeine was in the lemonade. There has also been a 3rd lawsuit in which a woman claims the drink left her with permanent cardiac injuries. The lemonade was originally put out so that customers could have a self-refill, which is insane considering that at one point, each cup could potentially have almost 400 milligrams of caffeine depending on the size and flavor, almost 4 times as much as a cup of coffee. And you could have a free refill. The lawsuit alleges that Panera didn't properly warn customers about the amount of caffeine in the drinks. Regarding the person in the first lawsuit, a 21-year-old college student named Sarah Katz, people who knew her claim that Katz would not have consumed the lemonade had she known how much caffeine was in it, because of a heart condition she had called long QT syndrome type 1. The second lawsuit concerns the death of a 46-year-old Florida man named David Brown, who died after drinking 3 cups of charged lemonade and who normally avoided energy drinks because of high blood pressure. Panera eventually moved the lemonade behind the counter and reduced the amount of caffeine in each of the drinks, but that clearly wasn't enough to stop the lemonade from being discontinued. Well, at least Panera Bread can't be sued anymore, right? Since they're getting rid of the lemonade. Except a few weeks ago, yet another lawsuit was filed against Panera claiming that an 18-year-old suffered cardiac arrest and seizures after drinking a charged lemonade. A cardiologist determined that heavy caffeine intake was identified as the only potential trigger of his cardiac arrest and seizures. Luckily, he eventually went on to make a recovery, but still, I would imagine that it's pretty traumatizing. It's a pretty traumatizing experience to go through cardiac arrest. Now, despite all of this, some people online are upset that they're getting rid of the charged lemonade. They're like, I used to go to Panera 3 times a week just to get the lemonade. It was the only thing that would wake me up. Now I'm canceling my membership. I guess Panera had like a membership where you could get unlimited drinks for like $15 a month. And now people are sad that Panera is getting rid of the lemonade. I have a message for all those people. This is a good thing. Like, look, you're probably going to have withdrawal after they get rid of the lemonade, since you're clearly dependent. But eventually, I think this is going to be a good thing, since you clearly have a problem. My main takeaway from the story comes from the fact that it seems like at least some people have bought the lemonade without realizing how much caffeine was in each drink. I think that this helps to illustrate a broader trend of food in the United States, how a lot of people consume food and beverages without really knowing what's inside of them. If people with medical conditions that were presumably fairly diligent about avoiding caffeine bought this highly caffeinated lemonade without realizing how much caffeine it had, what are normal people without medical conditions and presumably without the same diligence consuming every day without realizing it? That's something that the story has made me think about. Kind of scary. Speaking about consuming something without realizing it, a family was infected with a type of rare parasitic worm after eating wild bear meat harvested in Saskatchewan, Canada. That's Saskatchewan. I guess it's really common for bears to be just full of parasitic worms because of the salmon they eat. I read that some estimate that 1/4 of the bears in Canada and Alaska are infected with tapeworms. In doing research for this video, I actually saw a video online of a bear with a parasitic worm partially hanging out of its butt. Like, it was attached inside of the bear's intestines, but it was so long that it was coming out of its butt. It was disturbingly long. Apparently, bear tapeworms can be up to like 30 feet long. I really didn't need to see that video, actually. But yeah, this family ate this bear meat, which wasn't cooked well enough. And some of them didn't even eat the meat. They ate vegetables that were cross-contaminated by the bear meat. And 6 of them got trichinosis, or trichinosis, which is caused by roundworms of the genus Trichinella. The life cycle of these Trichinella roundworms is fascinating and also disgusting, fair warning. The life cycle for the species Trichinella spiralis starts with infected meat being consumed by the host, usually undercooked pork, although it is possible to get it from other animals like bears. Trichinella spiralis enters the small intestine as larvae, where it will burrow into the lining of the intestine. There, the worms mature into adults, after which they release up to 1,500 larvae before the adults are expelled from the intestines. The larvae permeate the intestine, entering the bloodstream, and travel around the body. Trichinella spiralis can only survive if it enters striated muscles, muscles responsible for voluntary movement. The larvae can also migrate to the other tissues, though, like the retinas in the eyes, the myocardium of the heart, the central nervous system, and brain, or other tissues in the body. And it can really cause some serious issues if the larvae end up in these tissues. But only larvae that enter striated muscles are able to continue developing, right? Larvae ending in other tissues will die. If the larvae are able to penetrate striated muscle fibers, the larvae can modify the muscle cells to these specialized cysts called nurse cells that nourish the larvae. And the larvae can then live up for months or even years before either the host gets eaten and Trichinella spiralis larvae gets passed on, or the encapsulated cyst becomes calcified and the larvae dies. Despite the rather disgusting life cycle of Trichinella spiralis, the main cause of trichinosis in humans is usually either minor or even asymptomatic, although in rare cases it can be lethal. But anyways, 3 of the family members that ate the infected bear meat had to be hospitalized and were treated with the antiparasitic medicine albendazole, and the other 3 made a recovery on their own. So I guess that's a good ending. And speaking of good endings, everyone knows that I like to end weird news reports on a really good article, and this week's no different. 706 people named Kyle, who gathered in the city of Kyle, Texas, have failed to break a Guinness World Record for the largest gathering of people with one name. The record currently belongs to a gathering of 2,325 people named, can you guess the name? I bet you can't. The record currently belongs to 2,325 people named Ivan, who gathered in Bosnia in 2017. Actually, the gathering of the Kyles didn't even break the record of last year's gathering of the Kyles, in which 1,490 Kyles gathered. I mean, to be fair, Ivan is currently a more popular name, even in the United States. Kyle was the 416th most popular name in 2023, compared to Ivan, which was the 153rd most popular male name. So the Kyles definitely have a disadvantage. Kyle is a somewhat specific name. You think it would be easier to set the record with a more popular name, maybe. But anyways, I have a good feeling about next year's Rutherford Fest. People named Rutherford are going to gather. All right.